Maybe that's why I do that. Well, here we are. So this is Healthy Relationships Only. I'm Dr. Bridget Cole Williams, and this is a show where we talk about every aspect of relationships and where we accept nothing less than healthy relationships only. And today I have Lauren, is it Forsch? Or how Forsch? And from Popped.NYC. And what I really love to do is have incredible conversations with people. And I'm sure many of us do this where we have this great conversation. It's like, oh my God, we needed that recorded. Oh my God, someone could really benefit from that. And with Lauren, that is definitely one of those things that happened. And so, Lauren, welcome to Healthy Relationships Only. How are you tonight?
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I feel like this is a step in the right direction to having only healthy relationships. So kudos to you for pioneering this.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? It's really about accountability, right? And so by having the show and doing it every week, and I know I benefit from it, it's something in the back of my mind all the time. Is this a healthy relationship? And what else can I do to make even my good relationships a little bit more healthy? And so I hope that this benefits other people as well. And so, first of all, let's start from the beginning. Let's first introduce you and what is Popped.NYC?
Great question. So I'm Lauren. I'm the founder of Popped.NYC, and we are a CBD company first and foremost. We created from scratch. I formulated a product when I first heard about CBD and how great it was. I am a graphic designer formerly, and so I created the brand around it. And more importantly, the movement, which is super important in cannabis, is where I think you'll see a trend. You know, our generation, we're smaller than the older and the younger generation. And so it gives us this chance to share our knowledge in a different way that more in the coaching model. And that's something that we're keeping as part of the popped world. We call it poptimism. It's not a new word, but and it's not a new theory. There are psychologists that have thought of it before, but it's really about practical optimism, saying, yes, these things are fixed, but what isn't fixed, and how can we change that through plant-based medicine, through changes in our mindset, through changes in our routine, and absolutely accountability partners. I think one thing that I do that that maybe not everyone loves, but is important for accountability is I whine. It's true. It's true. I'm a grown woman, and I love to say, "Oh, poor me, my life is so hard." Oh, but in those moments, I needed that, and then afterwards, I reflect and go, I'm very grateful. I have it very good. I get to talk to doctors, and I talked to another doctor earlier, and I'm like, Mom, look, because all I really want is mother's attention at the end of the day.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's been really great to bring this brand in and incorporate all the things that we're kind of fighting against, which in our professional environment, we use fighting loosely, and we're talking about fighting for the rights of those who can't fight for themselves.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's it.
What I love about that is what you've really shared with us is obviously you started with Popped.NYC CBD company, but what you really shared, and I think people that are in the cannabis CBD space, that it's not just products, it's a culture. And when it's done correctly, when your heart is into it, it can't just be what's in the bottle, right? That this is a space where you create a culture and that the products are just an extension or an expression of that culture when I think it's done right. I often talk about exemplifying the plant, being loving and giving and healing and strong, and all these aspects that this very unusual literal weed provides, right? And so what you saw was that, yes, I could have a product that can be beneficial, and you used it for your own wellness, but you really focus on the fact that there needs to be a positive, loving culture in this space, and that we can utilize this product to exemplify and help people with it.
I think that culture belongs in all spaces. And I think the way it becomes difficult in our society is capitalism. But I think that there's ways to move through that, around that. And I'm looking forward to talking with you about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of our conversation, I guess, what, 2 or 3 weeks ago, oh my God, we covered a lot. You
We
know,
did. We had a great time.
our interaction has been in the virtual world of LinkedIn and social media, and you have supported me in the work that I've done. And so it was this great opportunity to kind of put a face and name together. And we covered so many different topics, but you really started hitting on this aspect of seniors and caregiving. And so tell me where Popped NYC fits into that.
Well, I found that although seniors is the number one growth area in cannabis, not everyone wants to get high. And that's where CBD really comes in, and other plant medicines as well. But for
Mhm.
when I started with the plant, they were just studying the other cannabinoids. And so I only want to do things that I feel really confident and like I trust the source. And that's why I made my own product. And so I personally have parents that are seniors,
Mhm.
and I've used this product for them, and they've given me a hard time. Oh, we're going to get high, or we're going to smoke some doobie, or we're going to do these other things. And well, sure. Why not? But come on, take me seriously, mom, dad. This is medicine and this is life. And you're on those pharmaceuticals and they're making you act strange. You're saying you're uncomfortable. You're having all these side effects. And if you would take that pill, what about taking this dropper or this gummy or whatever instead, and try it? Maybe you need a combination of both.
Mhm.
I'm not anti pharmaceuticals. I take some
Mhm.
myself,
Mhm.
and I know that they make me live longer. So it's not about. I think that's part of the whole lifestyle, right? Not about although you kind of want to be indoctrinated into this society. You want to feel like you're part of
Mhm.
something bigger than yourself. But when you're sick, when you're not feeling well, you really need a tight knit group who's going to say, yeah, I got your back if you can't make it today. Or, let me make you a casserole or take you to a doctor's appointment. And that's something that we don't necessarily make time for in the society. And so I think that's really why it's so interesting to talk about seniors and caregivers. Popped prides itself on being the caretaker's caretaker. So
Oh, wow. Okay, so say a little bit more about that, because I think that you want to talk about a neglected group. Seniors have there's senior issues in itself, and quality health, quality care, and making sure that they get their needs met. But I think one of the most neglected groups, honestly, are the caregivers themselves.
yes,
And where does Pop NYC fit into this? And you have a brick and mortar as well, is that
I
correct?
do. And, right now the brick and mortar is in transition. We're trying to make it work, and all the, I've got a lot of dreams in there, but we're testing out some models, what we think could be something we could really scale and grow. And I think one of those things would be um, to have kind of a adult daycare.
Mm,
So, but that's not a sexy marketing term. So I've been doing all the things to find out what words aren't offensive, what words are enjoyable, what words would people bring in and go, that sounds comforting, that sounds warm, that sounds inviting, without thinking, oh, that sounds I don't know, I won't put any negative things out there, but
yeah.
just where you can go and be. And it's not a coffee shop, because you're specifically going to talk about the kind of some societal problems outside of politics.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we've had a few political conversations in our store, but it's really to focus on your health and your wellness. So people are coming in saying, this is what's going on with me. It's beyond the bud tender, I would say. We call our community a flight attendants. So we all make sure each other feels high or grounded, depending on what they're going for. And we take care of each other, and we just kind of, say, hey, maybe we're pains in the butts, but we got to look out for each other because we want someone to look out for us. And I think that's something different, these days. Like if you're like happy on your iPhone, then you don't, and you're like, but then what happens when you need a person, a human, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to get the reward.
Yes.
And I think that's a hard lesson to learn. And in the moment when you're dealing with a health crisis. So I'm just trying to solve that problem. I don't know if I'm, I
No,
don't know.
because I think there you mentioned that this is a place where seniors can go, but you also mention something that supports obviously the caregiver. And so sometimes their support for the caregiver is having the opportunity that the senior has some place to go, right? And that even the way that you're looking at your product line, it's something that can be beneficial for both, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's your stress, your anxiety, or your pain, or however you're experiencing life in that moment. Like I said, I feel that caregivers are often sometimes the most neglected group, and they need support. We look at children and we say, oh, it takes a village. But to be totally honest with you, um, by the time you're a senior and you're having more health issues, that village seems to have dissipated incredibly. And I feel like that village needs to come back into place. And the real truth is that we always need the village. I don't care how old you are. You always need the village. You always need that support. But definitely at the beginning of life, and God bless at the end of life, that village is needed. And so to be able to provide something that, like you said, it's not like your typical senior center, but something that recognizes the life that is still in the life and the breath that is still in these older people in our community, because quite often you don't feel, I mean, I know I do. I don't feel my age. And I hope that, look, would it be knocking on wood and crossing fingers and all of the above? I hope that continues, as life goes on. But many times we approach our senior community with like death and doom type of attitudes, you know, and I see this, I take it personally because I don't have my parents anymore. My father died when I was young, when I was 12. My mom died in 2020. And so having to be supportive during those, as someone is aging, as someone is dealing with illness, the one thing that I've known as a family doctor, and that I really want to make this clear, is that we're not all built to be caregivers. Okay. And I really want people to take that in, because many times we look at the brother and the sister, and this one shows up and that one doesn't, and you're not doing it. And we start causing some infighting when it comes to taking care of a senior. But just like there are some people, if they walked in a hospital and just the smell, which I think is supposed to be sanitized
It's
or
a
what,
lot better than it used to be. I remember going in as a kid
right?
and it was very
It was
uncomfortable.
horrible, right?
Yeah.
And that smell makes some people faint, right? God forbid, this look of the sight of blood makes some people faint. And so we're not all built to work in hospitals. We're not all built to be, just because you are the son or daughter of, does not mean that you're built to be doing that type of care, right? And the assumption is that humans that don't feel that they're built for caring even for babies tend not to have them, but not necessarily. But you get the idea here,
Yeah.
right? And so many times we cause infighting in our families because people are not built to be a caregiver, and that we should be supporting that person more than pointing the finger at them and saying that they are not good enough, or they don't love their parent or their aunt enough, or whatever it may be. We really have to create more of a village during this point of life.
Yeah. I'm very excited. New York offers where you can actually have a family member get paid to be your caregiver, which is a huge step. Considering I didn't get any maternity leave. That's pretty good.
Right, right. Well, we have to look at that, right? Because like, so now you're the caregiver and you have a full-time job.
Right. Right.
Well, and if you are, so what are you quitting your job? How are you, like, we don't really take in consideration how this affects people, right?
Yeah.
And financially and all of the messiness that needs to occur if someone is to go into a assistant living or a nursing, it's such a messy system that we have. And then of course the adult children or what have you and their children, right? Because we're now in a place where, like myself, where I'm sandwiched in. I had a elderly parent. At the same time, I had small children, right? And that, so I'm like juggling back and forth all the time. And we don't really have a great system that supports that. And so, one thing that I, another thing that just hit me, and I will never forget this woman and her mom. Early in my career, and this, she had so much joy, you know, she would come in with her elderly mom, and this woman, this was the daughter, was just joyful and smiley and giggled, and the mom was just, the two of them were just a hoot, let me just say that. And then over the time of taking care of them, I could see the mom was developing some dementia. And then eventually the mom ended up in a assistant living. Okay. And so now I was not as directly involved with the mom, though I was still considered her doctor, but now my support was more directed towards the daughter as the caregiver. And what I learned was that most of us do not approach caregiving with joy. Most of us do, and some people are like, joy, there's no joy. Like, no,
I've seen nurses that wiped my grandmother and loved her, and joy, definite joy.
Yeah, it can be done that way. Like, this woman would go to the assistant living and snuggle up in bed with her mom, and she was just a beautiful soul. Like, she would then joke and have fun with the other residents that lived there because no one was even seeing them. And she approached this time in life with all of the energy that these individuals had had previously in their life. And that usually is so much not the case. And it's so important. And it's not easy. I'm not claiming that it's easy, but it's so important.
That's amazing. That sounds really beautiful. I want to share an anecdote. You had asked me about seniors in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that we do, because we're wellness, we're not bound by medical, but
Mm-hmm.
we're more serious than recreational. We're not just like, yeah, let's get ripped.
Right.
Although, on a Friday, Saturday night, yeah, that's me. But like daytime, I don't know about time. Time is another social construct that we'll battle another time. But age, social construct, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a 75-year-old client who she would be offended. She would not be my client if I treated her like she was 75. No,
Mm-hmm.
she and I are like the same. We're equals. And she's got to pay the rent like everybody else. And that gets her through. We met post COVID. It was a very lonely time. We were both very lonely because we're both very social people.
Mm-hmm.
And she would come in and, shop and chat. And it was just like, her husband is in the assisted living next at the public hospital next to my store. And so it's just really been a wonderful blessing that we've gotten to get to know each other and created this community. But she's a valuable asset that is like, I don't want to say anything, but I'm so lucky. Like, she
Yeah.
is a paid member of our community, and she gives both her personal and professional effort. She worked as a social worker, has a master's degree. And this is the amazing part. One of the more amazing parts. She is a formerly incarcerated for a drug-related crime. And she is the model. She got out of the system, got her master's degree, worked, for the city. Like, she is the model citizen.
Right.
So I really look forward to like sharing her story and talking about how we just need to stop limiting ourselves. But we
But you're
also
also
need to move.
sharing this aspect that you have developed a friend that is many, many years your senior, and it's a friendship, right?
It
And many times we put parameters on, oh, well, you're older, you can't be my friend, right? And I believe it was last week we talked about relational intelligence, where you have an understanding of what your needs are and understand that there are some people that are friends and some are acquaintances and some are going to suck the life out of you, or maybe mentees, depending on how bad it is. And some are givers, right? Or are maybe trying to control there's the yin and yang to both aspects of that,
right.
right? And that age was never a parameter in that conversation. I think that it is a wonderful, beautiful blessing when you get to have a true friendship with someone who's a senior,
Yeah.
and that you get, because it's different than your parents,
It
right?
really is. It
Mhm.
really is. And even though she's the same age as my mom, I can say, well, we're the same on most things, but on this, wow, that's generational. Or, hey, that
Mm.
must have been tough for you to go through this because all of your peers were this way and you're an outlier. And I think that's what we have in common. We're outliers, but we can blend, we can.
And that's, you see her as a thriving, giving, living life person, where a lot of
Absolutely.
times we put up that boundary of, oh, you're older and you're senior and I mean, isn't this a little timely right now politically? Not that we want to get into all that, but this
We
is the
can be high-minded about it, I think.
right? No, we're having this conversation in our country right now, right? And our the value of our older community. We have the oldest Congress that we've had. Oh my gosh, I think ever. I don't remember the numbers, but if ever, in a very long time, the oldest Congress. Obviously, we have an older president. We have a senior former president, and we're looking at this about the value that they can provide, and are they adequate and have the potential to provide the services that they claim that they can provide. And I don't believe in dismissing someone simply based on age.
I don't either, but I do think that the later generation, the older generation, has shown that they have a tough time letting go of power and transitioning it
Mm.
to the youth. And I feel like that's where you and I actually come in, me more so, that is my job, is to translate from, there are good reasons why our elders have done some of the things that they've done, even though they're not all good. There are reasons, and there are things why, if we don't understand that history and we just kind of say, well, let's burn it to the ground and start over, we're going to lose a lot. And that concerns me as a citizen of this country and of the world,
Mhm.
that we can't figure out how to get along and say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to live forever. And so, like, I'm creating work. Do you want the work when I'm done? No. Well, what kind of work would you want? And even with my friend Hadassah at the store, we have a different, it's not about work. It's about, she looked at me the other day and she goes, we're like the same size, right? She's like, you want my clothes when I go? I'm like, Hadassah, you're not going anywhere. She's like, I know. I'm like, but yeah, I've been thinking about it. She's like, let me text Rachel, our other friend. And she's like, Rachel, Lauren's on the wardrobe.
Oh my gosh.
So we're very open and forward about death and dying.
And you're bringing up an excellent point, that literally what you just said there. I'm sure there are people that are like grasping their pearls, and it is so important.
I'll grasp my pearl.
Okay, right. To have that, to have an open conversation around death. Okay. It is, and for me and how I teach it with, my clients and patients, what have you, is that literally it's a part of life.
It's a
It
cycle.
is
It's a circle.
It's a circle. It's not separate from life. You can't get out of here without crossing that, finish line, right? But
But we could make puns about that all night.
yeah, that's yeah.
No?
Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Yeah,
Next,
yeah,
that's on a private call.
yeah. But I mean, honestly, there's no avoiding it. But yet we are very, and I think it's a little cultural. I think in America where we put our blinders on and don't want to talk about things that are uncomfortable, and where there are other cultures that actually almost celebrate it as a part of life. And so the fact that you literally are having conversations about, oh, okay, great, the wardrobe, and you can wear my clothes, I think that makes her comfortable as well, right? I mean, there are people now, my mom did this. I, she had an obituary writing party.
Oh, I love that. I would love to host that. Would you want to come?
Do I have to write I'm not ready to write, but I
Uh,
could. I guess I could, right? I mean, what is it? It's
I first wrote mine when I was 15 in English Lit.
Stop it. You did not.
I did. I did. And I updated it recently. And
I mean, honestly, but I think it's the best idea, right? What is the difference? It's a little bit of a bio for a
yeah.
job, but you just kind of go about it differently.
Yeah. No, it's a great way like to figure out if you're lost too, like what you want to accomplish in your life, like
Mhm.
what do you want to be said? And when I was younger, it was very much like, oh, I accomplished this or I accomplished that. But I lost my father 2 years ago, and I was very annoyed about all of his accomplishments. And then I was the last line, I was like, yeah, like I kind of think we're the center of the show. Like you
Right.
lived a different life. I don't understand. Like, because I put my children first, even though, you know, I'm like, get away from me. But
Yeah.
I do everything for them. And so to see that he wanted to be remembered for his accomplishments, but I was like, come on, like, can't you put us first? And I tried to put in some humorous things. I got in a little bit of trouble with mom. So I definitely think that actually doing that is a service to your family.
It is.
And some of them might not feel comfortable with it. And so you don't want to push them. But if it's something that calls to you, call me. We'll make one together.
No, I think it is like you said, there can be some humor in it, right? I know my mom wrote hers, and then there was a question of where was it, right?
That's an issue.
So, long story, well, I ended up getting. I don't think it was her final version, but I did end up getting some aspect of the manuscript, which of course that's what I based it. I had to fill in some gaps or what have you. But no, I think people should approach this differently, and it doesn't have to be morbid. And I think,
A little morbidity is fun.
well, but I'm saying it doesn't have to be like, oh my God, it's
No,
the
it doesn't have
worst.
to be gory or like
Right,
it happens. It
right,
happens.
it happens. And so, and I think it's a relief for the caregiver, right? Because, and when I say caregiver, sometimes that is, someone that's hired, but most of the time, well, who we're talking about are the people that are relatives, spouse,
The
adult
teens.
children, family, right? That's what
Yeah.
we're talking about today. So the one thing that I think is really important to remind people of, and I know it's not easy, particularly when people are going through a hard time, is that you should be mindful of the fact that you are spending time. e- Even when someone is ill, you can come in with joy. You can come in and make it quality time. You can um, be able to, whether you might just sit and read a book to them. Like, a lot of people just don't know what to do because the idea of someone being ill is so uncomfortable that they kind of say, okay, what do you need? Okay. And it's almost like they're out. Or they just kind of sit there and family members talk around the person that's actually ill. right? And you might just read a book. You might do, it is maybe sometimes watching a TV show, but you can do it with joy instead of the sadness and despair. Fact of the matter is 6.36 million adults between the ages of 18 are actually in, all the way up are currently caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
For many times we're talking about a partner even. So keep in mind that sometimes we're talking about young people that might actually have illness as well. And how they deal with it and the support that they may or may not have is really truly an issue that I'm sorry, I'm like, something went down the wrong way. But we need to try to find a way to balance out the clinical responsibilities and their role as a loved one. And I know that that was a big deal for, honestly, like I was a like as a teenager, I was a caregiver for my grandparents. I was there, a 12-year-old with my dad. And then with my mom, I was back and forth between Ohio and Michigan. And I think it is really important that you don't lose the intimacy of your relationship. You need to be the daughter or the son or what have you, and not just be the responsible party. And many times we emotionally distance ourselves because it's easier, but now you've really left that person even more alone than they were before, right? Because you've emotionally distanced yourself.
It kind of surprises me that like funeral homes don't do education about this, the like life cycle education. Seems like it would be a good marketing.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, it's sort of like by the time you get to the funeral, like,
No, think of it as a marketing funnel activity.
yeah, no, I hear it. I mean, this is true. Like it is, you'll go back to them, right? Because you have some
Right.
relationship.
Because you don't know anyone else and you're like, oh gosh, I was wondering about that. Thanks.
You know why though? I don't think funeral homes need a lot of marketing. I
Word of
mean,
mouth.
it's kind of it's sitting right there in front of you. Yeah. But I do agree that hospice 100% needs to, and they might do this. Like I'm not saying they don't do this, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a
But
great source.
yeah, to be able to connect more. And the fact of the matter is, there's some seniors that want to be in their own home, and that can be very difficult. And there are others that are willing to live with family members, and the rest are what choice or not by choice are in some sort of facility. And I don't think we have, particularly the people in facilities, really have a target audience of family members coming in and out to learn how to be a better family member caregiver when you're coming in and out of there.
Yeah, I think any kind of education, and one of the buzzwords I've been hearing lately is micro learning. I don't think it's a new concept, but I
Mhm.
think it's a great way to think about learning for people who say, oh, I have any number of reasons that I cannot learn new material. It's like we're all capable of learning. Even I've seen miracles, I'm sure you have as a doctor.
Right.
But we're all capable of learning. And so if there's a curiosity, if there's hey, a fear, really, if we want to, focus on that for a minute, saying, what are your fears behind this? How can
Mhm.
we educate you that will relieve that and allow you to have joy? Right.
Right.
But if you're having a panic attack because you don't know what to do next, it's hard to do that. And
Absolutely.
ChatGPT can do a lot, but it cannot change a diaper.
No, it cannot. And the fact of the matter, you're right. If fear is this huge thing standing in the way, how do you get to the point of joy? So you have to confront whatever those fears are. And so really coming to kind of the next aspect of this is, what can people do to make this better? And I think number one is making a plan and having conversations. And first question is, what do you want? Asking the senior, what do you want your life to look like when you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s? Because if you've never had that conversation, you are blindsided when things start to go south, right? So having as an adult, as whether it's your spouse or whether you're adult children, if you've never had that conversation, what is this going to look like? What do you want it to look like? Have you planned? Have you financially planned for any of this? Is really, really key. And
A
another,
living will, a trust.
all of those things, right? Like, um,
And these don't affect, this is now getting away from what kind of affects everybody, but
mhm,
um, most people have a lot of people, anyone who's probably in the well enough to be thinking this far in advance
mhm,
has some kind of asset that they need to protect, because there are different ways to care for yourself. And I think, if one of your goals in life is to leave assets behind for your family, and you're not talking about, well, how long am I going to live? Am I going to, well, a popular concern in my family is, what if I live so long I run out of money?
mhm. Right, and
Uh,
that's something that needs to be discussed,
I'm
right?
like, okay, we need to talk about that. But what if you don't? What happens?
Right.
Yeah. And then,
Absolutely.
what healthy relationships only. Here's an unhealthy thing I do. I'm like, can I put a post-it note on the back of the things that I want? My
Oh,
my sister does not like that. So my
no,
mom's
but
made
I
a
mean,
list.
do you know what? Well, maybe you not doing it as the adult child, but knowing what's going where could stop a lot of infighting in families.
Yeah. I think we've decided to keep it at an arm's length, and maybe we'll bring joy to it later. If not, I'll call you and I'll
I
ground
mean, you
myself.
could it could be like if your mom has that type of it could be almost a game.
Yeah.
Like, but it needs to be discussed, and
Yeah.
those aspects need to be discussed. And even knowing, like, like, I know for my mom, she did not want to live with us. I tried to, if she wasn't going to live with us, I wanted her to be like literally down the street. Absolutely refused. She needed to maintain her own autonomy. She did not want to, she stayed in her own home as long, I shouldn't say she didn't want to stay in her own home, but she always had the plan to go to an assisted living. That's what she wanted. She had this whole plan,
Check out. We're in a 55 plus community right now.
and she went to a senior community, and eventually she went to an assist. I mean, she had a very clear plan.
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't necessarily discussed that much, but I can't say it wasn't discussed at all.
Right.
Okay. Like it was there. But having those conversations are very clear. How do you want me to participate in your illness? How do we, like you said, talk about the finances or what have you to make this make sense? And in the meantime, things that really are key is, people have a fear when someone becomes ill of like, how long is this experience going to last? Because I'm saying find joy, but let's be honest, it can be horribly dreadful, right? So you have the fear of how long is this going to last? And then you have the fear of I feel guilty that I thought that. This is like the
This is
vicious.
this is my jam. This is it. So are you ready? So my baby was just born, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law showed up at the birthday party, and I was like, he had lost a significant amount of weight while he was taking, well, first of all, I should say my mother-in-law hurt her back. And while he was caring for her, it really took a toll on him. But it was more, I think that just was the catalyst for him realizing that he had a very aggressive form of lung cancer.
Mm,
And they really give you non-small cell lung cancer. And so they gave him 6 months. And
mm,
it was almost to the day. But at the end of that, after like 3-4 months, we're like, I don't know, he seems okay. Like, what's going on? We don't understand how. In the end, it was a totally different situation. But and we had home hospice care, and we were so fortunate to be with him as he passed. It's just a really wild situation. It's something that I don't think, even if you talk about it, you can't really be prepared for what happens. But it does feel a lot better to be able to say, hey, we had a plan. Can we stick to the plan? No, here's why we can't. Or, you know what? Yeah, let's just stick to the plan. For me, having things in writing is so important because I changed my mind a lot. And it's because it's based on feels, and feels change, and things change. And so that's why I'm all for writing it down, whether it's something formal or just maybe a Google spreadsheet or a Google Doc where you can say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And then whenever you have these feelings of fear, these anxieties come on, then you can go back and look at the paper. And then this is actually when you're having these tough conversations, I think that's the perfect time to be using CBD.
Mm-hmm.
To take a minute. One thing that we incorporate with our thing is a mindfulness exercise. So before you take your CBD, notice how you are feeling physically, any pain or anxiety. And we use the doctor's pain scale, the 1 through 10, where 1 is happy and 10 is, I'm told, hospitalization.
Right.
So, and a lot of people are surprised by that. And I think there's this tough guy image.
Stoic patient. Yes.
Well, what was that?
The stoic patient, the one that is, so many of our seniors live in agonizing pain. They don't want the narcotics. They don't want to, they don't want to be addicted. They don't want to be high. They're afraid of, everything's very overwhelming. And so the stoic patient is literally living in horrible, horrible pain. And like 10, 12 on the scale. But then just, it's sad how many seniors live in pain. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm going to take that road.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about the pain scale?
What do you mean? As far as why, or?
Yeah, the 1 through 10 system that they use in pain management clinics. Are you familiar with the funding mechanism behind that?
You know what? I remember a story. Well, let me say this. I remember a story that I have forgotten because I know there's a whole story behind it, but right now I can't think of what. Do you know the story? Like, tell me what.
I don't remember. It was created by a woman, so yay.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm told it was funded by the pharmaceutical industry to create an awareness of pain for the patient. But the problem with it is it's focused on pain and not joy. And so there is a mental component that we're all aware of, right? It's placebo effect, faith, whatever it is. They chose to focus on the pain.
Well, that's how unfortunately.
If you survey 100 people and ask them 1 through 10, what's a 1 and what's the 10? Happy or is the 10 the 1 pain or is the 10 pain? Most people that are healthy people will say, I feel 10. I feel amazing.
Right. I mean, 10. Right.
So it's this paradigm that like switches your whole brain and your whole way of thinking going into the pain. And that's what I found for me. Pain management is most effective when you're being mindful and thoughtful and saying, I'm going to make healthy choices, not just about food, but even about what my thoughts are. And I'm going to, say 1 through 10. And I like using the 1 through 10 because we have a catchy little thing that says, may I curse? A little taboo.
I think so. I'm pretty sure I've cursed today. Have I not? Maybe. I don't know.
So after you take our product, we say 1 through 10, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
And then you take it. And then we say, and I'm saying, we guarantee that you'll give 2 fucks less. So a reduction of 2 points pain on that scale. And the reason that is, it's an anti-inflammatory. And so it's just going to, if you're feeling like this, it's just going to feel like this.
Get down. Right. Absolutely.
But it's not going to solve all your problems. And that's why communication, verbal communication like we're doing right now is so important. Connecting with community is so important. And finding a place to talk about the things that maybe you think you shouldn't be talking about. There's someone out there talking about them and they want to talk to you about these things, whether it's burial rituals from around the world, mourning. I'm very interested in mourning. I'd love to I would love to, but I feel passionate about creating a space for mourners. I would like to wail. I'd like to bring back wailing. I know that used to be something that people did. Maybe not all the time, but like I need to let it out sometimes, and it's not really appropriate. So
But I
and
think that goes all the way back to your original statement of taking accountability and saying, sometimes I just want to whine. And sometimes we just need to get it out, right? And so there's nothing wrong with feeling sorry for yourself and being all down in the dumps, and then you're done, and now we're going to problem solve because you have to get that emotion out, right? And many times I feel we are in a place where you're allowed to have that emotion when you learn of someone dying, and then many times we have to kind of suck it up or what have you. You can have it at the funeral, and then you have to suck it up again, right? But and I it's just how we've built our culture around this. But to have a place where you can say, um, I need to get out my anger, because a lot of times we have anger around death. I have to get out my loneliness, and then you're doing it in a community.
that's why we have a partnership with a boxing ring.
Mm. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's
So
amazing.
yeah, we have a partnership with Hadassah, the woman I mentioned. She's a jewelry designer.
Mhm.
She makes beautiful things. I'll have to get you a pair. You'd love her. And she knows about she was a therapist in her professional life. So I feel like each piece of jewelry that you buy, you're getting therapy for a discount and a piece of jewelry. I
Right.
mean, it's a
I love,
win-win.
yeah,
And
and the
then
energy that goes into it and that is shared in that.
oh, yeah, and, like, if you tell her about what you're interested in, she'll create something special for you. She's really, really a special person.
Yeah, I
And
love
all this and you can't talk to her about this stuff, but all this while dealing with her husband in the home, and
mm,
then she
mm,
has cancer for the second time,
mm,
and never peeps, never complains. As her, like I told you, she was in prison for 3 years
mhm,
for well, I didn't say, for smuggling cocaine.
mhm,
But that was born out of her addiction, and that was what got her to go to school for social work and get her master's degree and
right.
really
To help
contribute to
others.
society.
Yeah, to help others without a doubt. So we're kind of summing up here. I just want to be able to just share with people that caregivers do burn out, and that when that burns out, the relationship that you have with the person that you love dearly sometimes will suffer because you're trying to take care of your kids and your job and take care of them, and so that you need to have support that can allow you to get that back into balance. It's not the person, it's the situation. And you need to find ways to stay connected with that person, as I said before, separating your clinical responsibilities or responsibilities from your relationship that you have, so that you can stay the daughter, that you can stay the spouse, whatever it may be. And remember that you are not taking care of a patient, you're taking care of a person that you care for. Learn if you start to feel just overwhelmed, sometimes learning more about the ailment itself can be so beneficial because it takes away some of that unknown. And redefine intimacy. If this is your spouse, or even if it is like you're an adult child, having that close relationship starts to dissipate as someone sometimes becomes older. And how do you redefine that close relationship? Like with a spouse, it may be intimacy, meaning more in the romantic or sexual manner. But even as an adult child, there's the intimacy of your parent, right? There's the intimacy of that close relationship, and that you both benefit from. And so doing the things that are unique to the two of you. Like my mom had this thing about, she just was a giver. And so if she would ask for, oh, I want gum, I would buy a huge box of gum with individual packets, because she was going to give it out to every nurse. And look, if you walked by you probably got gum if you're walking down the hall. But that was a way of her maintaining her um, unique personality and being able to be more autonomous and saying, hey, I have something to give here, right? But finding ways to make sure that they stay themselves inside jokes. Like before my mom was even ill, I think she was turning 70 or 75. And my mom has like all these outrageous statements. And so we had a party, and as people walked in, they had to write down Margie. My mom's name was Margie, Margieisms. Oh my God, these people knew her, like these statements their favorite statements that she would share, and being able to connect with people and just as the body's failing and sometimes the mind, there's this incredible human that you've shared life with, and to keep that going forward and to still hug, right? Still hug. Go ahead, Lauren. I'm
Do you
sorry.
have any tips for people with healthy relationships to maintain them right now? 3 things. Hugs, definitely.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to communicate. And we talked about it in a couple different ways. Communicate with your body, meaning hugs, hold hands, do things that redefine like your relationship. And it could be that unique aspects, or it might be painting their nails. You know, it's a way of honoring and caring for them, or uh, doing their hair or whatever it. My mom still wanted to do her makeup, so
That's nice.
whatever it is, and I would help her with that. Like those little things can make such a difference, and and to remind you of the loved one that you are in the presence of, because there'll be the day when they're not there, right? And if anything, make a space for gratitude.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I had to make an entire business about it because I don't know how I could it could be
Yeah.
without taking up a lot of space for that and saying, for me, gratitude looks like mindfulness and meditation,
Hmm.
finding joy in small things. But I'm a city girl.
Hmm.
So how do I embrace these suburban ideals that I grew up with that I'm instilling into my children while, you know, being environmentally conscious and
Sure.
spreading joy? And how do I do it all? And I think what you're hearing everybody say is cannabis.
Right. And it's a big part of it, right? Like how do you find balance?
Yeah.
And so for some people, it is going to be CBD, or just a reminder of bringing down the anxiety and the stress and really balancing out your entire system, which, that's a whole conversation in
Being
itself.
present for sure.
But definitely being present, right? Because I think we're in a horribly, horribly fast paced world. And if you don't make a space for gratitude and love the fact that they're still there with you, and slowing down enough to love them and interact and come in the room with joy. Yes, you need your time, and you need to be able to make sure you're taking care of yourself. But if you can do those few things, just to be able to communicate, find ways to stay connected with them, find that space for gratitude and touch and love, I think is so key at the end of the day. So,
I agree. I wish I could give you a big hug.
no, absolutely. No, I feel the same way. And I support so much of what you're doing and what you're able to provide. And honestly, we could go on forever with this. There's so much more that I think caregivers need. How can people reach out to you and what you're doing in New York?
Yeah. So our website is www.popped, Popped, like a balloon that popped,
Hmm.
.nyc instead of .com.
Okay.
And my email is lauren@popped.nyc. Go ahead and email me. Why not? What do we have to lose?
Right.
Uh, and then we're on Instagram. I personally am on LinkedIn. So I am very much about empowering individuals to build their dreams. So we have everything from a product to a co-working incubator space for the cannabis industry. And then I have a coaching program
Very.
that I am launching soft. It's launched. Hi. Woo! So if you're interested in any of that, please reach out to me. If you think that there's something else I can help you with, I love to help just be a sounds board. 15 minutes of my time is yours for free, no matter what. Just I love meeting people.
Yeah.
And I swear that during COVID, I was in the dark in a little ball going, I hate people.
Right.
But the truth is I love people, and it was really sad to be
disconnected. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so,
And that was popped, POPPED.NYC.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to make sure I put
Or
that
yes,
there.
sir.
Yeah. To get that on there. And so that people can see that. And then so we have to talk again, and I hope people will connect with you in New York, and I'll be out that way. I got to get out that way. There's so many things
Well, maybe we can bring your bar cart out that way when you come, debut it, and get some people in the room. If you guys are looking for cannabis jobs, I think Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams is going to be hiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely. I need a New York crew desperately. So
I'm going to help you build it, because there's room for everybody, you guys.
Yeah.
You belong. We can't wait to get to know you, work with you. You start as a patient. Everybody starts as a patient.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's plenty of room to collaborate. Well, thank you, Lauren, so much. Such an important conversation. And of course, people know how to reach out to me, whether it's here or Dr. Bridget MD on Instagram or Facebook or, what have you. Reach out, leave messages here. And like I said, will be here every Monday at 7 p.m. Really just talking about relationships, because at this date and time, phase of life, whatever it may be, we accept nothing less than healthy relationships only. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So.